He dedicated his life to the Arctic, believing that respect could bridge the gap between man and wild. But nature, in the form of a silent, watching polar bear, doesn't recognize good intentions. Jack Harper thought he had found trust until one quiet step turned into a fatal mistake. But just wait until you see how this story takes a chilling turn, and why, in the end, nature's truth brings the harshest form of justice. Jack Harper had always stood apart, not just from other scientists, but from most people. In a world driven by speed and noise, he chased stillness. He wasn't interested in lectures or fame. He wanted silence, ice, wind, the kind of truth that only the Arctic could offer. For more than 30 years, Jack had made the frozen North his second home. He slept beneath skies lit by auroras, crossed endless fields of ice, and studied polar bears not through glass or cages, but by being there, on foot, alone, not to interfere, but to understand. Some called him reckless, others visionary, but to those who truly knew him, Jack was simply committed. His philosophy was clear. If you approached nature with respect, it would reveal its secrets, not through force, through patience. This expedition was meant to be just another entry in his lifelong journal, a simple return to familiar territory, the ice plains near Victoria Island in the Canadian Arctic. The goal was clear: monitor changes in sea ice patterns, observe the movements of local polar bear populations, and return home. But on the fourth day, something unexpected happened. Jack was scanning the horizon near a broken ridge of snow when he spotted a shape. Large, white, unmoving. A young polar bear, likely male, resting alone on the ice. No other animals nearby. No sign of distress. Just stillness. Jack stopped in his tracks. This was rare. Bears in the wild don't usually stay still when a human is near. They move. They watch. They vanish. But this one didn't. He remained seated, his eyes fixed on Jack. No aggression, no fear, only quiet observation, as if he was waiting. Jack's heart raced, but his movements remained slow, measured. He lifted his camera and pressed record. Then, speaking softly, more to himself than to the lens, he said, "This bear isn't afraid. Maybe he senses I'm not a threat. Maybe he feels the same calm I do." He didn't move closer. Not yet. He just watched, filming in the golden Arctic light, the way the wind stirred the bear's fur, how the animal blinked slowly, almost thoughtfully. That footage would later become one of the most talked about scenes among researchers, nature lovers, and explorers alike. A man, entirely alone, just meters from one of the Arctic's most powerful predators, not holding a weapon, but simply sitting with a camera, open-hearted and unafraid. In that moment, Jack believed he had found something rare. Not just a close encounter, a kind of understanding. And maybe, just maybe, it felt that way to everyone watching later. A man and a beast sharing the ice. No cages, no fear, no noise. It was beautiful. It was captivating. And it was the beginning of a tragic illusion. The Arctic had a way of making time stretch. Days felt longer under endless pale skies. Sounds carried differently. The crunch of boots, the groan of shifting ice, the low breath of wind across the snow. For 2 more days, the bear stayed. Jack was surprised, even moved by the animal's patience. It didn't act like the others he'd studied over the years. No signs of fear, no interest in fleeing. It remained near the ridge, a silent sentinel watching from a distance. Sometimes it dozed, sometimes it wandered a little, but it always came back to the same patch of ice, always within sight. Jack couldn't help but interpret it as something more. He began altering his approach. No longer content to observe, he wanted to engage, carefully, respectfully, but directly. He started leaving food, raw fish, placed on the snow far from camp. At first, the bear ignored it, but by the second offering, it ate, cautiously, without haste. Jack took this as a signal. Each day, he inched a little closer. 10 feet here, 5 feet there. He made sure never to look threatening, never to move too fast. He spoke to the bear, softly, almost reverently, and always filmed from a steady tripod. To Jack, This wasn't just data. It was something deeper. A moment forming between two intelligent beings, one human, one wild. In one clip, filmed on the 6th evening, his voice is quiet, barely above a whisper. I've spent most of my life out here. I know their patterns, their postures, their instincts. But this, I've never felt this kind of connection before. He's letting me in. The next morning, the light was golden and low. It was the kind of morning where the ice didn't creak, and even the wind held its breath. Jack prepared one final offering, a piece of fish, fresh, laid across a thin patch of snow. He checked the camera, made sure it was recording, and then, holding the fish in his gloved hand, he walked 15 feet. He crouched slowly, knees pressing into the frost. The bear was awake, watching, still, tall and quiet, like a statue carved from snow. Jack didn't reach out. He didn't flinch. He looked at the camera and smiled. He's curious, not threatened. I think this is real trust. The moment held for only a breath. Then everything shifted. Without sound, without warning, the bear moved. Not in anger, not even in panic. Just pure, ancient instinct, fast, precise, and final. Jack had no time to react. The bear covered the distance in a single burst. The camera remained steady, catching the blur of motion, the snow disturbed by sudden weight, Jack's frame tilting backward. He fell out of view. The lens briefly captured a swirl of white and red, a sharp movement of fur and limb. Then silence. And then static. The feed ended 17 seconds after the bear moved. 3 days passed before the emergency team arrived. Jack had missed his final scheduled check-in, and Arctic protocol left little room for waiting. When they reached his location, everything looked intact. His equipment was undisturbed. His tent was sealed. The journal lay on his cot, half written, a pen still resting across the page. It was only when they searched the perimeter that they found signs of the encounter, subtle at first, then unmistakable. The snow was marked by wide, deep impressions. A camera, lens frosted but unbroken, pointed at nothing, and beyond that, silence. No footprints from Jack, only one set, large, four-toed, leading away. The bear had long since vanished. There was no scene of destruction, no chaos, just the cold, empty calm of nature returning to stillness, as if nothing had happened. But something had, something final. And the Arctic, as always, kept its silence. The footage made its way into the world slowly, first through a research channel, then national news, then viral clips reshared a million times over. The final days of Jack Harper, captured in high-definition silence, became a kind of digital monument. The reactions were immediate, but divided. Some called Jack reckless, a man who crossed a line in pursuit of something that never truly existed. Others called him brave, even visionary, someone who believed in a bond between species and paid the ultimate price trying to prove it. But beneath every headline, beneath every tribute or criticism, one truth rose above the noise. Nature doesn't make friends. The polar bear hadn't attacked out of rage. It hadn't hunted Jack. It had reacted the way wild animals do, when boundaries are erased. Not emotionally, but instinctively. That moment, that lunge was not personal. It was survival, plain and simple. Jack's mistake wasn't malice. It was belief. The belief that understanding could somehow override the laws of the wild. His colleagues grieved, not just for the loss of a friend, but for the haunting clarity of the lesson left behind. At a small memorial service held near the edge of the Arctic Circle, one of his oldest companions, fellow explorer Matthew Grant, stood with a heavy voice and said, "Jack always saw beauty in danger. He looked at risk and saw potential. But sometimes, in places like this, you forget. Danger isn't a metaphor. It's real. And out here, it has weight. It has speed. It has teeth." Jack Harper was laid to rest not far from the place he loved most, beneath a sky washed in fading northern light, surrounded by the wind, the cold, and the silence that had always called to him. His final recordings would later be archived not just as scientific material, but as a reminder to future explorers, researchers, and dreamers. Not a warning against curiosity, not even a warning against trust, but a reminder that respect in the wild is not about closeness, it's about distance.